Well, take your cue from the word objectivism. It aims for objectivity, and what it says basically is that man's distinctive faculty, not his only faculty, but his distinctive faculty is reason. And the job of reason is to identify reality and draw conclusions about it so that man can live. Life is the standard of value. Reason is man's tool of survival. And so obviously the process of ascertaining, identifying reality must be objective if you're going to get it right. But if it's not objective, you'll get it wrong.
But you'd see one of the counters to rationality would be religion in the terms you've described. But there must be other counters. There must be other... I'm saying the blind consumerism that we're all wrapped up in nowadays. That is a quasi-religion, isn't it? And that's really not really very clever at all.
Well, it may not be, but you see, you're at liberty to argue against it and not participate in it. So if you don't like consumerism, if you don't like consumer goods, get off the chair you're sitting on and sit on the floor. Lie on a bed of nails.
Right.
But who's going to make that for you? I mean, consumerism is good. And this sort of stuff about blind consumerism, it's part of the left wing's campaign against capitalism. You're sounding like Barack Obama.
Well, I've got to have a count.
With all due respect, you're not nearly as bad. I know you've got questions about it.
No, we're going to do a little segue here because people will recognise you as a broadcaster from way back. You had a career in broadcasting. You were in radio in the 70s, you were in TV from the mid-80s to early 90s, but then you left TV and you flung back to them the challenge that television was brain dead. And I think a lot of people applauded.
Oh, yes. It went on for weeks. I had no idea it would cause such a furore. I thought it would be a quiet little piece on Barry Shaw's television page in the New Zealand Herald. When I opened the paper the next morning, it was front page headlines, cartoons, the works. So obviously it struck a chord.
So what was your grounds for then saying that it was brain dead?
What I could see was happening was a person who shall remain nameless, one of the TVNZ executives, had announced to anyone who cared to listen that the day of the studio interview was over. The studio interview was dead.
Here we are.
Excuse us.
Here we are.
Well, we're both corpses, of course. And they were downplaying and relegating to late times at night, late time slots, those programs in which there were head-to-head studio interviews.
What was he putting in a preference to?
Well, nothing. Just film items and razzmatazz.
Dancing,
you know,
with the
all
stars,
that. Well, we didn't have that. And mind you, I love that program. So, you know, there's a place for all of that. But what I was talking about specifically was news and current affairs.
Yes.
And when your boss is saying that the day of the studio interview is over, then you realise when you're a studio interviewer, and that's your main claim to fame, this place is not long for you, and you are not long for this place. That was about a year before I flounced, I suppose. So I went through a lot of soul searching because, you know, it was an awfully attractive job to have and well paying.
But the day of the long interview, we're doing a 27-minute interview.
Oh, that still hasn't come back.
Hasn't come back.
No.
And there seems, our own feeling, our own experience is there is a place for it. It may not be a mainstream television top of the pops thing, but there is a constituency out there for it.
I'm sure there is, and I'm sure it's big enough, more than big enough, to be mainstream. It may appeal mainly to old farts like us,
indeed,
but there are a lot of us. Let's say we're talking the 45 to 105 age group, and they've got enough money spread out among them to be an audience worth cultivating. But the emphasis, for whatever reason, is solely on gum-chewing teenagers.
So you would still own that statement that the mainstream television, at least, is brain dead?
News and current affairs. Yes. There's a lot of television I love. I'm quite a TV addict. Now that we have so much choice. But news and current affairs, you know, I get mine mainly from Fox, which you'll be horrified at.
I understand that.
They have some terrific interviews. But again, I don't like all the banging and clanging that goes on. Why can't they just calm down? What are they afraid will happen if they just talk normally? But when the alternative is CNN, which has a marked left-wing bias, I go with Fox, and it really does keep you up to date, and it's stimulating.
Maybe you've cottoned on something here. Well, you've helped me cotton on something. That we're now no longer talking about broadcasting on television, we're talking about narrowcasting, we're talking about sectional interest of people. And people who want your kind of program, they go to Fox. Other people will go to Al Jazeera, other people will go to BBC, other people will come to Triangle Television. People will select. You can now pick up television on your computer, for instance.
Well, you know, it's one of the great joys of free enterprise.
Yeah.
And, you know, that blind consumerism you were talking about.
But we don't have
and
to,
I'm sure you wouldn't want to dispense with that.
No, we don't have to march to the drum of some central broadcasting authority that says what will be on the television.
No, and that's great.
You've been, up until recently, the editor of The Free Radical. What does The Free